There has been tons of debates about what minimum hourly rate freelance contractors should charge when working on projects. And since this is a type of work that is not regulated by minimum wage requirements and mostly is an underground economy in most countries, there is really no set standard on what rates freelance contractors should charge. Is $3 too low? However, we even see freelancers charging as low as $2 per hour. Today, PooTech presents a guide on finding your minimum and ideal rates as a freelancer. This is the first video of our freelance series. The objective is to 1. Find out your minimum rate. 2. Find your ideal rate that you should charge for your contracts and projects. And 3. Use this information to align your rates with your personal financial goals. Upon finishing this video, we will be able to come up with your ideal yearly, monthly, weekly, daily, and hourly rates based on your lifestyle, career, and financial goals. But most importantly, we will be able to identify your minimum rate and make sure that moving forward, you do not get any lower than this minimum rate when charging for contracts and projects. This guide should generally work for anyone in any country, but since I am in the Philippines, the amounts you'd see in this presentation would be in US dollars and Philippine peso. This method revolves around having a business mindset about your work as a freelancer and incorporating it into your personal finance. Look at yourself as a one-man enterprise providing services to clients. And as a business enterprise, your goal is to have a positive income, or in other words, profitable. Meaning, kumikita ka, hindi lugi, hindi abonado. At hindi rin isang kahig isang tuka or break even. You need to make sure that you are actually earning and not losing money or wasting time and effort. Whether you are working already as a freelancer or planning to jump ship to freelancing, you need to make sure that it will work for you and that you'd actually gain from it. As a freelancer, at home or not, your freelancing expenses and income are partially, if not mostly, tied up or overlaps with your personal or household finances, and we will take that into consideration. A great example will be your internet connection at home. You use it for work, and you also use it for personal stuff. And most probably, other members of the family also use it for their own personal stuff. And whether you are the one paying for it or not, you should still consider this cost as part of your operation as a freelance enterprise. Just like most personal finance principles, we will have to consider your expenses and target savings. And from this, we can find out what income you should target or goal for. These components come together in the following formula. Total expenses plus target savings equals target income. In other words, your income should be able to cover for all your expenses and whatever amount you want to set aside as savings. Looks really simple, but this really takes a lot of effort and time to master for most of us. At this point, it would be great to do a quick check of your current situation. Where are you now in terms of what you're earning and what you're spending? For this quick check, we'll just take a look at your total freelancing earnings and total expenses in the last month. If you have been tracking your expenses and incomes for the past year, then you can use your annual totals. Get a pen and paper and write it down. What's your total income? What's your total expenses? Which is greater, income or expenses, or are they equal? Based on your answer to this question, your current situation will fall into one of the following 3 situations. Situation 1. Expenses is greater than your income. Let's look back at the formula. Since your income is not able to cover for all your expenses, you don't have any to put into savings. We cross out savings, and most probably, you borrow money to cover for some of your expenses. Situation 1 is wasting time and effort. Lugi or talo or abonado. In the business sense, you're not profitable. You're losing money. You are in a very bad situation here. You are not gaining and eventually mababaon ka sa utang. Sayang ng pagod at pawis at puyat. Talo ka. What do you need to do? You should do something or do everything to increase your income to be able to cover for your expenses as soon as possible. Otherwise, mangungutang ka ng mangungutang para mabayaran ang mga expenses mo or aasa ka sa asawa, magulang, and other people to help you cover for some of your expenses. This is a situation you don't want to be in. Situation number 2. Your total expenses is equal to your total income. Let's look at the formula again. Since your income is just enough to cover for all your expenses, nothing extra is left. So, still, nothing is put into savings. We cross out savings again. Situation number 2 is sakto lang, or what they call isang kahig isang tuka. In the business sense, it's break even. This is not a bad situation, but not a good one either because nothing extra is left that you can put into savings or investment to grow your money. Nothing extra is left to spend for your own growth like training or additional skills and education. And if you do not have anything in savings, what would you use if there's an emergency like when you or a family member meets an accident or gets hospitalized, or a calamity or fire destroys your house? And we all know as freelancers, our income stability is riskier compared to regularly employed folks. If your contract ends and you don't get hired for another project in the next 2 or 3 months, you won't be able to cover for your expenses if you don't have any savings. And what about the money you need for your retirement? Remember, eventually, all of us will get old, become weak, and will no longer be able to work and earn. So it's very important that you are able to put money into savings. And this brings us to situation number 3, where your total income is greater than your total expenses. Let's look at the formula again. Since your income is larger than your total expenses, it means that there's extra money left. That extra money left is called savings. If this is where you are now, congratulations and keep up the good work. Situation 3 is kumikitang kabuhayan. In the business sense, you are profitable. This is the situation you want to be in. You are earning well, you are able to cover for all your expenses, and you have money left to put into savings. Ikaw na. What we want here is to put more and more into savings. The more we are able to save, the better. How much you want to put into savings depends on your plans and dreams. So make sure that you set your target savings and save as much as you want, as much as you can. And if you have savings, you can use this for further growth. Grow your skills by enrolling into classes and trainings. Grow your wealth by investing in mutual funds, stock market, and other investment instruments. Or you can even grow your home, renovate your house to make it bigger, get married, or have more children to grow your family. It's up to you. If you are consistently in situation number 3, your savings will continue to accumulate and you are already in the road of building your wealth. And that's a topic maybe for another day and another lecturer who is an expert on wealth building. But at this point, it should already be very clear to you why we keep repeating the formula income equals expenses plus savings. It should already be clear that we should target or goal for a total income that would allow us to cover for all our expenses and our target savings. Okay, let's get down to business and find out what rates you should actually be charging for your freelance work so you will be in situation number 3. Step 1. Know your expenses. In our quick check earlier, we did a very rough estimate of your expenses. This time, we need to compute and come up with a very close estimate of your total annual expenses. The more accurate, the better. If you have been tracking your expenses in the past year, simply get the total of all your expenses for the last 12 months to get the total annual expenses. If you haven't been tracking your expenses, then try to get a close estimate by filling out the different expense categories in this workbook. Take note that we are tallying amounts for the whole year here. I will provide a link for the workbook at the end of this presentation. But for now, we'll do a quick run-through of this workbook. Let's assume you are single, independent, and living alone. Okay, first item. Taxes. I'm putting taxes as the first item here so we can get over it right away. If you have an accountant or a tax agent that computes your taxes, then put them here. For the purposes of making this presentation simple, and since I am not a qualified accountant to discuss and compute income taxes, I will leave this out blank. Apartment rent. Even if you own the house you live in and don't pay rent, I recommend you still include this expense because in a business mindset, you always pay for using commercial space. Sum up the amount for a year. Say you rent a 10,000 peso apartment unit. So that's 120,000 for the whole year. Food and household expenses. I don't think this needs an explanation. Let's just say for simplicity, you spend 10,000 for food and household every month, so that's 120,000 for a year. Clothes and personal stuff. Clothes and personal effects go here. Let's say you only spend 10,000 since you work from home and don't really need to buy lots of clothes and shoes. Electricity. If you don't pay the electric bill, you can skip this, but I'd still recommend you still consider it as an expense because in a business setting, this is always included as an operating expense. Let's say you pay 4,000 every month for electricity, and that's 48,000 for the whole year. Internet connection. Let's say your DSL connection is 3,000 every month, so that's 36,000 for a year. Water supply. Let's say you pay 300 monthly, so that's 3,600 for the year. Telephone and mobile phone expenses. Let's assume you are on a postpaid plan and you pay 1,000 per month. That's 12,000 for the whole year. Healthcare, medical coverage, or PhilHealth. If you're not formally employed, you'd have to pay your PhilHealth voluntarily. If you also pay other health insurance coverage or coverage plans, include them here. Let's say you pay a total of 15,000 for this coverage for 1 year. Debts and amortizations. This includes all existing debts and loans you are paying during the year. Cash loan, car loan, pag-ibig loan, credit card debts, etc. Sum up everything that you'll be paying for the whole year and put them here. For good vibes, let's assume you don't have any debts. Insurance. If you're paying for a life or disability insurance, sum up how much you'd pay for 1 year and put them here. For simplicity, let's say you're paying 24,000 for the whole year. SSS or Social Security. Same with PhilHealth. If you are not formally employed, you'd have to pay this voluntarily. Let's say you pay 1,000 monthly, so that's 12,000 for 1 year. Pag-ibig or Home Development Mutual Fund. Same with PhilHealth and SSS. If you're not formally employed, you'd have to pay this voluntarily. You can skip this if you don't have any plans of getting a home loan through Pag-ibig. For our example, I'll leave it blank. Transportation. This is self-explanatory. Hopefully, this is minimal if you work from home. Let's say you spend 10,000 for the whole year. Entertainment, relaxation, and vacation. Yes, to keep yourself at peak performance, you need to relax and de-stress and unwind, so vacation should be part of your expense budget. Go to Boracay or Baguio once or twice a year, and let's say you spend 30,000 for the whole year. Medical and sickness expenses. Things like Biogesic, Diatabs, Band-Aid, and all the prescription stuff that you get from the pharmacy counter, you put them here. Hopefully you don't spend too much for this, but if there's any, put them here. Let's just say you stay healthy working from home and spent only 3,000 for medicines last year. Other expenses. All other expenses you can't categorize, put them here. Let's just say you spent 30,000 on impulse buying for the last year. Of course, you may have other expense categories you want to add or categories you may want to remove. Just go ahead. Our expenses mostly depend on our individual lifestyle and priorities, so the categories and expenses really differs per person. The bottom line is, we want to get the closest estimate of your total expenses for the whole year. So, at the bottom of this table, the total annual expenses will be automatically calculated. For our example, the total annual expenses is 473,600. You may be surprised you spent all that much. Obviously, you need to earn at least this amount for the whole year to cover for all your expenses. If you earn this amount, then you are break even. Remember situation number 2 we discussed earlier. Okay, take note of your total annual expenses at the bottom of the expense categories table and copy it to the yellow box on step number 1 on the upper right of the workbook. We now move to step number 2. Step number 2 is where you set your target savings for the whole year. How much you want to put into savings is totally up to you and will depend on your plans and dreams. You want to save up for a new car 12 months from now, a new house, a condo unit, or do you want to simply accumulate savings? For the purposes of this presentation, let's say you want to put 5,000 every month into savings. That's 60,000 for 1 year. We put this in the yellow box for step number 2. Now, step number 3, set your working hours and working days. How often and how long do you want to work? You are a freelancer, so you should be able to somehow decide when and how much time you want to spend working. How many days do you want to work each week? 5 days like normal people? 4 days? Or 6 days to earn more? How many hours do you want to spend working every day? Regular 8 hours? 6 hours? 4 hours? 10 or 12 hours? This is totally up to you and with how you arrange it with your clients. Be careful with setting too much hours and too much days working. Getting stressed, restless, and sleepless could lead to sickness and poor health. And if that happens, your medical and sickness expenses may take away what you've earned. For our example, let's say you want to work only 4 days a week, but you want to work 10 hours on each day. Fill this up on the yellow boxes for step number 3. After filling out the boxes for step 1, 2, and 3, the table below should automatically calculate, which brings us to step number 4. Step number 4. Know your minimum rate and ideal rates. Take note, we assume that 1 year is equivalent to 12 months or 52 weeks. Normally, as freelancers, we don't really get any 13-month pay unlike regular employees. Also, since most freelancing platforms use US dollars as their base currency, I have included a column for amounts converted to US dollars. Make sure you update the exchange rate box with the current US dollars to peso exchange rate. I recommend you use the average forex rate for the last 12 months or whatever exchange rate was on your last money transfer. For our example, let's say the exchange rate for $1 is 48 pesos. To know your target rates, we look at the table on step number 4. The minimum rates column is break-even rate. Notice that the yearly income under minimum column is same as your total annual expenses, which is 473,600. This means if you charge or earn at this minimum rate, your total income will only be able to cover for all your expenses. Nothing is left to set aside. Remember situation number 2 from earlier. You should not go lower than this minimum rate because if you do, your total income will not be able to cover for all your expenses. Remember situation number 1 from earlier. We come up with the monthly rate when we divide the yearly income by 12 months. That's 39,466.67 that you should earn monthly, or that is $822.22 minimum. We come up with the weekly rate when we divide the yearly income by 52 weeks, and that's 9,107 pesos and 69 cents that you should earn weekly, or in US dollars that would be $189.74. Since in our example we plan to work 4 days only per week. So we divide the weekly rate by 4 days. That's 2,276 pesos and 92 cents that you should earn per day, or $47.44. Since in our example we plan to work for 10 hours per day, we divide the daily rate by 10 hours, and that is 227 pesos and 69 cents. You should charge per hour, or $4.74 per hour. Those are the minimum rates. Honestly, we do not want to set our rates to these minimum rates because we do not want to be just break even or isang kahig isang tuka. These rates should only serve as a reference guide, so you know you should not go any lower than these rates if you want to be able to cover for all your expenses. Of course, we want to goal for the ideal rates. So let's look at the ideal rates column. The ideal rates column is profitable rate. This means if you charge or earn at these rates, your total income will be able to cover for all your expenses, plus you will also have excess funds equivalent to your target annual savings. Notice that the yearly income under ideal column is the sum of your total annual expenses in step 1 and the target annual savings in step 2, which is 533,600. This means you should go for 44,466 pesos and 67 cents, or $926.39 monthly rate, or 10,261 pesos and 54 cents, or $213.78 weekly. And for the daily rates, 2,565 and 38 cents, or $53.45 if you work 4 days a week in this example, or 256 pesos and 54 cents, or $5.34 hourly rate if you work 10 hours on each of those 4 days. So if you are the type who works on long-term clients daily at fixed hours, then the hourly, daily, and weekly rates should be a good reference guide for you. If you work on regular projects that only happen once or twice every month, then the monthly rate should serve as a good guide. If you are the type who have staggered work throughout the year and may have months with no projects, then the yearly rate should serve as a good guide to know at least how much total income you should target for the whole year. Okay, just an important note. These calculated rates assume the earnings that goes into your pocket. Fees and charges by your specific freelancing platform like Upwork, Freelancer.com, Fiverr, etc. are not yet taken account for in the calculations, since different platforms have different ways of charging fees. Some charge at a fixed amount monthly, some charge by percentage of your earnings, and some have sliding fees. So make sure you take this into account when you set your bidding rates. Let me show you an example. Let's log into Upwork and submit a proposal with the ideal rate that we calculated, which is $5.34. Upwork charges 20%, which is equivalent to $1.34. And so the actual rate charged to the client is $6.68. Also, foreign exchange rates have very direct effect on our income since most platforms use US dollars as their base currency. So make sure you also put some buffer on your rates to compensate for sudden fluctuations in the foreign exchange rates. So here's a quick review of the 4 steps. I intentionally did not show you this summary at the beginning to make sure that you actually go through the detailed steps. Step 1, know your expenses. Step 2, set your target savings. Step 3, set your working hours and working days. And step 4, know your target minimum and ideal rates. Like what I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the minimum rates and ideal rates you will come up with should only serve as a guide for you to make better decisions when setting your hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, or even yearly rates. It does not mean that these are the rates you should use to bid for all your projects. You may have better and high-paying skill sets than others, so nothing should prevent you from setting your rates even higher. The underlying agenda of this presentation is to help you realize that you cannot simply and blindly set your rates, that there is a minimum rate for each and everyone, and we should never go lower than that minimum rate, because earning lower than that rate only means that you are losing money, wasting time, and wasting your efforts, and you won't be able to cover for all your expenses. Nagpagod ka lang at nagpuyat ka lang. Charging at very low rates is not helping you. It's not helping the freelancing industry, and it's only driving everyone to poverty. Now go ahead and fill out the workbook available at this link. Just fill out the yellow boxes. Let me know what you think in the comments, and please share with your friends and colleagues to help them get an idea of what their minimum rates and ideal rates should be, and be guided towards better and healthier personal finances. The general concept of the income equals expense plus savings formula should apply to anyone, so feel free to share even to those who are not in the freelancing industry.